The rain hit the glass like throwing gravel. Across the dark room, the blue light of a phone charging on the nightstand pulsed. Underneath the bed, the hum of the air conditioner vibrated through the floorboards. Then my body tore open. A sharp heat ripped across my lower back. I fell to my knees. A wet, heavy gush soaked through my sweatpants. I dragged myself up, clutching the nightstand. The blue light lit up his face. "Jason," I gasped. "Wake up." My water broke. He shifted. The blanket pulled over his shoulder. "I have an 8 o'clock meeting with the regional director," he muttered, eyes closed. "Call an ambulance." "Jason, please. The baby is coming." He opened one eye, sighing like I had woken him over a leaking faucet. "Hannah, I've worked on this hotel account for 3 months. You work at Target. You don't understand real pressure. Call 911. He rolled over. The mattress creaked. His breathing settled back into a steady rhythm. I stood in the dark while another contraction tightened my stomach like a steel cable. To understand how a 12-year marriage rotted down to that single freezing moment, you have to look back at the years before the storm. My name is Hannah Miller. At 42, I spent my nights behind Register 4 at Target in Naperville, Illinois. My feet ached every night. My hands were calloused from scanning barcodes and bagging detergent. I clipped coupons and knew the price of milk to the exact cent. That patient endurance kept me going through 6 years of fertility clinics, hormone injections, and 2 miscarriages. When I finally got pregnant with Leo through our last IVF attempt, my doctor classified it as a high-risk geriatric pregnancy. My blood pressure spiked. I was terrified to buy baby clothes until the 3rd trimester. Jason knew all of this. Jason was 44, a hotel sales manager who lived for appearances. He wore navy suits, smelled of expensive sandalwood cologne, and smiled brightly for clients. But inside our home, he practiced a freezing cruelty, the cold shoulder, the subtle insults, the heavy sighs whenever I needed help. He made me feel invisible. The afternoon before my water broke, Jason stood in the yellow nursery, holding his phone out. "Smile, Hannah." He posted the photo on Facebook with the caption, "Can't wait to meet our little man. Ready to be the dad he deserves." Comments flooded in praising him. But as soon as he put his phone down, his smile vanished. He glared at the nursing chair I had bought. "Did you really need to waste money on this?" "It was 40% off, Jason. My back aches." He shook his head, turning away. "Not everything needs to be top of the line, just because you took 6 years to get pregnant." That was Jason. Warm in photos, ice cold in private. I made soft excuses for his hard behavior. Now, it was 2:19 in the morning. I dragged myself into the hallway and dialed 911. "Is your husband home, ma'am?" the dispatcher asked. I looked down the dark hall. "Yes." "Is he able to drive you to Edward Hospital?" "No," I whispered. "He has a meeting." A 2-second silence hung on the line. In that silence, I heard how my life sounded to a stranger. "Unlock your door and sit down, ma'am. An ambulance is 3 minutes out." I pulled on clean sweatpants, my hands shaking. I grabbed the heavy hospital bag near the closet. Halfway down the stairs, another wave of pain hit me. I sank onto a step, counting seconds through gritted teeth. When I opened the front door, the smell of wet asphalt rushed in. Across the street, yellow headlights cut through the rain. 65-year-old Evelyn Hayes was crossing. Evelyn was a widow with severe arthritis in both knees. Tonight, she moved as fast as her swollen joints allowed, wearing a yellow raincoat over her nightgown. "Hannah," she called. "What's happening?" "The baby's coming, Evelyn." She stepped onto the porch, looking at the dark house. "Where is Jason?" My silence was the answer. Evelyn's face hardened. She looked up at our closed bedroom blinds. and let out a sharp breath. Then she took the heavy bag from my hand. "Lean on me, sweetheart." "Evelyn, your knees—" "My knees have complained for 20 years, she snapped gently, wrapping a sturdy arm around my waist. "They can complain at the hospital." The ambulance pulled up, sirens wailing. Paramedics rushed over with a stretcher. As they lifted me up, Evelyn tried to climb in. The paramedics stopped her. "Ma'am, only immediate family. Do you have an ID?" Evelyn was wearing wet slippers and had no purse. "I don't care about your rules, son." "Insurance policy, ma'am," he insisted, closing the doors. The last thing I saw was Evelyn standing under the pouring rain, staring at the ambulance. The vehicle accelerated into the dark night. I was alone. My husband was sleeping soundly upstairs. Then, through the small back window, I saw yellow headlights pull out across the street. It was Evelyn's rusted Ford Taurus. Despite her screaming knee pain, despite the storm, she was driving behind us, her headlights cutting through the dark all the way to the hospital. I squeezed my eyes shut as another contraction hit. Hot tears fell against my cold cheeks. I wasn't crying from pain. I was crying because I realized the man I married was a ghost, but a neighbor in wet slippers was driving through a storm, just so I wouldn't face the dark alone. The double doors of Edward Hospital burst open, slamming against the yellow walls. Cold air, thick with the sharp smell of bleach and isopropyl alcohol, rushed into my lungs. In the triage room, overhead lights hummed loudly. A monitor beeped in a steady rhythm. The nurse strapped a tight elastic band across my stomach and adjusted the round plastic sensor. Suddenly, the steady beep broke into a frantic screech. Red numbers flashed. Fetal heart rate dropping fast. Fetal distress. "We need to move her right now," a doctor shouted. Nurses scrambled. A metal gurney was unlocked with a sharp clack. Hands lifted my heavy body onto the narrow mattress. They pushed the gurney down the long hallway at a full sprint. White lights flashed overhead like strobe lights. A clipboard was shoved into my trembling hands to sign. Through the swinging glass doors, I saw Evelyn rushing into the waiting room. Her yellow raincoat was dripping wet onto the linoleum floor. Her breath came in ragged gasps from running on her arthritic knees. She squeezed my cold fingers right before the heavy doors slammed shut. "I am right outside, sweetheart," Evelyn shouted. "Everything will be okay." Then the heavy wooden doors locked me in. The operating room was freezing. The air smelled metallic, heavy with iodine and blood. A blue cloth screen was tied across my chest. Anesthesia burned like liquid ice through my foreline. My teeth chattered violently under the harsh lamps, while scalpels clinked against silver trays. At 6:41 in the morning, a sudden pressure pulled at my abdomen. Then a thin, wet gasp echoed, followed by a fierce, angry roar. "That's your boy, Hannah," the lead surgeon said, lifting a dark-haired baby over the blue curtain. He weighed 6 pounds, 3 ounces. The nurse wiped his face and pressed his warm cheek against mine. Tears spilled down my temples. I laughed and sobbed at the same time, shivering beneath heavy heated blankets as the team worked to stop my blood loss. By noon, they wheeled my bed into recovery room 204. Jason still had not answered any of my 7 phone calls. At 2:30 that afternoon, my phone buzzed against the bedside table. A text message from Jason appeared. Just 4 plain words. "Is the baby okay?" No phone call. No question about my emergency C-section. No query about our room number. No concern for my survival. Just 4 hollow words. An older nurse named Denise adjusted Leo's pale green blanket inside his plastic bassinet. She glanced over at Evelyn, who had fallen asleep in a stiff vinyl chair, her swollen knee resting on a folded pillow. Denise checked my blood pressure cuff and looked down at me, with kind eyes. "I've worked night shifts in maternity for 30 years, honey," Denise said softly. "Men always find convenient excuses not to show up when things get hard. But a mother never forgets who actually stood by her bed." I looked down at baby Leo. His tiny hand curled tightly around the tip of my pinky finger. 7 long days later, I brought Leo home from the hospital. Jason had spent the entire week calling in with brief excuses about crucial hotel sales meetings. That afternoon, a sharp knock sounded at our locked bedroom door. Jason stepped inside, wearing a tailored navy suit and polished black leather shoes. He smelled strongly of sandalwood cologne, completely untouched by the raw exhaustion of newborn life. "My mother keeps texting for pictures," Jason said, pulling his phone out. "I want to see my son." I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my stomach as my C-section incision throbbed with a burning pain. "You mean the son you left me to deliver alone while you slept?" Jason's jaw tightened. "Don't start this, Hannah. I had work. I sent a text message." He walked over to the bassinet and lifted Leo into his arms. He held the baby far away from his chest, like a fragile glass package he was terrified of dropping. He raised his phone, angled the lens, and flashed a polished, artificial smile for the camera. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Jason had posted the selfie on Facebook. The caption read, "My whole world finally arrived, ready to be the dad he deserves." Notifications exploded across the screen. What a natural father. Such a blessed family. The moment Leo began to cry, Jason held him out toward me with an irritated scowl. "Something is wrong with him. I think he needs food. Besides, I have a dinner meeting with the regional team in 20 minutes. He checked his gold watch, adjusted his tie, and walked out without looking back once. I sat alone in the quiet bedroom. The mechanical hum of the bassinet vibrated softly through the floorboards. The blue light of the phone screen glowed in the fading evening light. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand, silencing the endless notifications. I lifted Leo against my chest, breathing in his sweet lotion scent. His tiny heart beat in a fast, steady rhythm against mine. I was completely done making soft excuses for a cold husband. The illusion of my marriage was dead. I looked down at my son's face and made a silent, unshakable vow. I would protect him, and I would rebuild our lives on my own terms, no matter what it took. 3 weeks later, I stood in the baby aisle at Target. The harsh fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air smelled of clean cardboard and new plastic. I reached for a tub of powdered formula, placed it in my red cart, and swiped our joint debit card at the register. The screen flashed bright red. Declined. I blinked. I swiped it again. Declined. My cheeks burned as the cashier looked at me. I paid with my small cash tips from last month and walked out into the humid parking lot, holding Leo tight against my chest. In the car, I called Jason. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. Loud music and the clinking of wine glasses echoed in the background. "The household card was declined, Jason," I said, my voice shaking. "We don't have a formula." "It's a bank glitch, Hannah," he said smoothly. "Use another card. I'm in the middle of a dinner with regional executives. I'll check it tomorrow." He hung up. I did not wait for tomorrow. At 1 o'clock in the morning, while Leo slept soundly in his crib, I sat at the kitchen table. The house was dead quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator. I opened my laptop. For 10 years at Target, I worked registers and managed inventory logs. I knew how to match barcodes, track line items, and spot discrepancies. I logged into our joint banking portal. The checking account, which should have held $3,000 for mortgage and groceries, held $42. The savings account was drained clean, $15,000 gone. My heart hammered against my ribs. I pulled up our credit card statements and opened a fresh Excel spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, location. Column C, amount. Column D, Jason's explanation. My fingers flew across the keyboard. The truth is unspooled line by line under the cold glow of the screen. March 14th, steakhouse in downtown Chicago. $340. Jason had told me he was working late at the hotel. April 22nd, luxury boutique hotel in downtown Indianapolis. $850. He had claimed he was at a regional conference. May 10th, a jewelry store in Naperville. $1,200 for a diamond necklace. 3 days before Leo was born. I had received no necklace. By 1:45 in the morning, the spreadsheet totaled over $22,000 in stolen marital funds. Drained while I worked night shifts, while I went through painful IVF injections, while I bled in the hospital. Then, at 2 o'clock sharp, the old family iPad charging on the kitchen counter lit up with a soft chime. An iCloud message popped up on the glass screen. It was from a contact saved as Chloe Reed. I stepped closer. My cold hands hovered over the glass. The message read, "When are you filing the paperwork? She's just a night shift cashier. She's exhausted with the baby. She's too stupid and tired to ever notice the money." A cold wave washed from my head to my toes. My hands stopped trembling. The panic vanished, replaced by an icy, crystal-clear focus. He didn't just cheat. He counted on my exhaustion to keep me blind. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the iPad. I used my phone to take clear, crisp photographs of every text message thread, every hotel confirmation, and every photo Chloe had sent him. I saved the Excel file onto a thumb drive and printed 2 physical copies on our desktop printer. The paper came out warm, smelling of fresh black ink. The next morning at 8 o'clock, I walked into a small jewelry shop downtown. I took off my silver wedding band and the thin silver necklace my mother had given me years ago. The jeweler weighed them on a velvet pad and handed me $1,200 in cash. I took the cash, my blue accordion folder, and my thumb drive, and drove straight to the brick law offices of Sarah Jenkins in downtown Naperville. The office smelled of old paper and fresh coffee. Sarah Jenkins was 55, with sharp silver hair, dark-rimmed glasses, and calm, piercing eyes. She sat behind a dark oak desk, watching me as I arranged my documents. I laid the printed Excel sheet, the bank statements, and the photo evidence on her desk in neat, labeled stacks. Sarah flipped through the pages. Her eyebrows raised slightly. She looked up at me. "You organize this yourself?" "I work inventory and registers at Target," I said, my voice steady and low. "I know how numbers work." Sarah closed the file with a decisive snap. She leaned forward, resting her hands on the desk. "Illinois family courts look at evidence. Hannah, this isn't just an affair. This is dissipation of marital assets. He illegally drained joint funds while you were incapacitated. What do we do?" I asked. "We file for divorce," Sarah said flatly. "We request temporary physical custody of Leo, child support, and an emergency order to freeze all remaining accounts." She looked into my eyes. "It will be a hard road. Hannah, are you ready?" I looked out the window at the morning sun hitting the pavement. For 6 years, I had bent myself backward to keep a dying marriage alive. I had accepted cold shoulders, harsh words, and loneliness just to keep the peace. "I'm not doing this out of anger," I said, looking Sarah straight in the eye. "I'm doing this so my son never grows up thinking that love means letting someone erase you." I signed the retainer agreement, handed over the cash, and walked out into the crisp morning air. The sun felt warm on my face. For the first time in 12 years, I breathed deeply. 2 weeks after filing the divorce papers, a sharp, frantic knock rattled the front door frame. I opened the door a few inches, keeping the heavy steel security latch engaged. Jason stood on the concrete porch, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit. He clutched a plush teddy bear under his left arm. "Open the door, Hannah," he demanded, stepping toward the threshold. "I am here to take my son." I stayed inside the doorway, resting my forearm against the white frame. "You do not have a scheduled visit today, Jason. The temporary court proposal clearly states short visits on weekends only." "I am his father," he shouted, his neck turning blotchy and red. "You do not make the rules in this house anymore. Give me my son right now, or I will call the police." "Call them," I said, my voice steady and cold. 10 minutes later, 2 Naperville police officers walked up the driveway, their heavy-duty belts clinking with every step. Jason rushed down the porch steps to meet them, waving his arms dramatically. "Officers, thank God you are here. My wife is emotionally unstable after childbirth. She is hiding my infant son inside and refusing to let me exercise my parental rights." The older officer turned to me, his hand resting casually near his belt. "Ma'am, is there a formal custody order in place?" I did not scream. I did not cry. I pulled my phone from my sweatpants pocket and tapped the screen. "Officers, before you make any decisions, please view this video from my Ring doorbell camera, recorded 3 weeks ago." I held out the screen. The video played with crisp, amplified audio. The screen displayed the dark, rain-soaked porch at 2:15 in the morning. It captured me on my knees in my wet sweatpants, crying in agony as my water broke across the floorboards. Then, the camera caught Jason opening the second-story window. His voice rang out crystal clear through the phone speaker. "I have an 8 o'clock meeting with the regional director. Call an ambulance yourself." Then, the video showed him slamming the window shut and turning off the bedroom light. The younger officer gasped softly. The older officer's jaw tightened. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, letting out a heavy, disappointed breath. "Sir," the older officer said, turning slowly toward Jason, his voice dropping into a stern, icy tone. "You left a pregnant woman in high-risk labor in the pouring rain. We are filing an official police report right now for spouse abandonment and child neglect." Jason's face turned white as paper. He stammered, trying to explain, but the officers noted the incident in their black logs and escorted him firmly off my property. The formal custody hearing took place 8 days later at the DuPage County Courthouse. The courtroom smelled of polished mahogany, old paper, and stale coffee. High-arched windows let in pale morning sunlight. Jason sat at the defense table in a navy-tailored suit, trying to look composed. Beside him sat his mother, Patricia, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, and his mistress, Chloe Reed, who wore a bright red designer coat and kept her chin held high. Jason's attorney spoke first, painting Jason as a devoted, hard-working executive whose demanding career temporarily kept him away during a stressful period. He depicted me as an unstable, vengeful mother intent on restricting a father's rights out of spite. Then, Sarah Jenkins stood up. She did not raise her voice. She presented facts like a surgeon wielding a sharp scalpel. First, she submitted the official Naperville police report regarding the Ring doorbell video. Second, she presented hospital visitor logs and medical records proving Jason never arrived during my emergency C-section or my recovery from severe blood loss. Third, Sarah executed a court-ordered subpoena on Jason's personal financial accounts and his employer's corporate expense records. Sarah handed 3 thick stacks of paper to the judge. "Your Honor, Mr. Vance claims he spent these funds on legitimate corporate development. But these subpoenaed financial records prove he systematically drained $22,000 from joint marital accounts to purchase luxury jewelry, boutique hotel suites, and five-star dinners for Miss Chloe Reed. The judge, a stern woman with sharp gray eyes, reviewed the documents line by line. The heavy silence in the courtroom was deafening. Under Illinois law, this constitutes criminal dissipation of marital assets while the petitioner was incapacitated, Sarah added firmly. Furthermore, these subpoenaed documents have triggered an emergency internal audit at Mr. Vance's corporate headquarters. At that exact moment, Jason's phone vibrated loudly against the wooden table. His attorney frowned and pointed at the screen. Jason picked it up with trembling fingers and opened an email from the Vice President of Human Resources at his hotel corporation. Due to the financial records subpoenaed by the court, the corporate legal team had completed an emergency audit. They found dozens of falsified business expense reports spanning over 18 months. The email stated clearly Jason was terminated immediately for corporate fraud, his company vehicle was revoked, and a civil lawsuit was pending to recover all stolen corporate funds. Chloe Reed read the email over his shoulder. Her eyes filled with absolute shock and disgust. She realized in an instant that the wealthy, successful executive she had been seeing was now unemployed, disgraced, and facing potential bankruptcy. Without saying a single word, Chloe grabbed her red coat, picked up her designer purse, and walked straight out of the courtroom, her high heels clicking loudly against the marble floor. She did not look back at Jason once. Jason's mother buried her face in her hands, weeping softly in overwhelming shame. The judge slammed her heavy wooden gavel down. The loud, booming clack echoed through the high ceiling. "Mr. Vance," the judge said, her voice like ice, "your actions demonstrate a complete lack of moral character, financial integrity, and basic parental responsibility." The judge delivered her final ruling. 1. Petitioner Hannah Miller is granted primary physical custody of Leo. 2. Respondent Jason Vance must repay the full $22,000 of dissipated marital funds, deducted directly from his remaining share of the house equity. 3. Respondent receives only short, supervised visits with Leo, contingent upon his completion of court-mandated parenting classes. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun beat down on the wide marble steps. Jason ran after me, his tie undone, his suit rumpled, his face twisted in pure rage and desperation. "You ruined my life," Jason screamed, his voice cracking across the plaza. "You destroyed my career. You turned my company against me. You wanted revenge." I stopped at the bottom of the steps, adjusting the sunshade on Leo's stroller. I turned around and looked up at Jason. I felt no anger. I felt no hatred. I felt nothing at all. "I didn't ruin your life, Jason," I said, my voice steady and clear as glass. "You submitted false expense reports. You left me on the floor in the rain. You spent our son's money on another woman. I didn't ruin you. I just handed the court the truth." Evelyn slipped her arm firmly through mine. Jason stood alone on the wide marble steps as we walked away into the bright afternoon sun. For 12 years, he had mistaken my quiet patience for weakness. That afternoon, he finally learned that a mother protecting her child is the strongest, most unstoppable force on earth. The months following the final divorce decree were quiet, but they were far from easy. Rebuilding a life from scratch required a deliberate, step-by-step strategy. I refused to let myself or my son live in the shadow of a painful, bitter past. First, I focused my energy on education and career advancement. Every weeknight, after placing Leo gently in his crib and kissing his forehead, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The room smelled of fresh black coffee and clean cotton laundry. I enrolled in an evening certificate program in supply chain management and warehouse logistics at the College of DuPage. For 10 years at Target, I had managed register logs, scanned thousands of barcodes, and tracked stock inventory. Now, I applied that practical experience to formal academic coursework. I studied demand forecasting, shipping manifests, and digital inventory management systems until 1 o'clock in the morning. My eyes burned under the desk lamp, but my mind remained crystal clear. 9 months later, I graduated at the very top of my class. Recognizing my new credential and my 10 years of flawless work attendance, Target promoted me to shift logistics supervisor at their regional distribution warehouse. My hourly wage doubled overnight. I traded my old oversized red hoodie for a crisp Navy supervisor vest and a sturdy pair of steel-toed work boots. Second, I took total control of my personal finances, health, and physical well-being. I purchased a reliable silver Honda CR-V with low mileage, paying for it in full with my share of the liquidated house equity. I opened a dedicated college savings account for Leo and set up automatic monthly deposits. I cooked fresh, wholesome meals, practiced nightly physical therapy exercises for my C-section scar, and took long morning walks with Leo in his stroller. The pale, exhausted woman who once hid in gray sweatpants was gone. My skin glowed, my posture stood straight, and my eyes held a calm, unshakable confidence. Third, our household dynamic transformed into something deeply nourishing. My mother, Martha, fully recovered from her hip replacement surgery, moved into our spare bedroom. Though she walked with a polished wooden cane, she brought immense warmth and stability to our home. She chopped fresh vegetables, folded baby clothes, and read picture books to Leo while he crawled happily across the living room rug. Across the street, Evelyn remained Leo's beloved grandmother figure. She could no longer sit on the floor due to her arthritic knees, so Leo crawled straight up to her armchair, clutching her hands to pull himself up. Evelyn kept tiny organic crackers in her apron pocket and read him storybooks in her raspy, loving voice. Family was no longer defined by a legal marriage certificate or a shared last name. It was built day by day through genuine presence and reliable care. Meanwhile, Jason underwent his own quiet, painful reality check. Stripped of his management title, corporate expense account, and luxury company car, Jason was forced to face the wreckage of his own making. He moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment in Fishers and took a low-level sales job at a local medical supply company. He was legally required to repay the full $22,000 he had stolen from our marital estate, a heavy debt that was deducted directly from his monthly paychecks. The court-mandated parenting classes humbled him completely. For the first time in his life, Jason could not hide behind a tailored suit, an expensive cologne, or a charming smile. He had to learn the raw, unglamorous reality of newborn care. During his brief, court-supervised weekend visits, Jason stopped acting like a distant guest. He began asking practical, humbler questions through our court-monitored parenting app. What brand of diaper cream works best for his rash? How many ounces of milk does he drink before his afternoon nap? Does he still rub his left ear when he gets tired? His questions were no longer about posing for Facebook photos or impressing his mother. They were about actually learning how to care for his son. I answered every message promptly, clearly, and professionally, maintaining firm and healthy boundaries. Hostility gave way to functional, structured co-parenting. One rainy Tuesday evening, I stood in front of the hallway mirror before heading out for my night shift at the warehouse. I zipped up my Navy supervisor vest, adjusted my ID badge, and checked my reflection. The sharp lines of fatigue around my eyes had softened into deep strength. Behind me, I could hear Martha singing a gentle lullaby in the nursery while Evelyn's Ford Taurus idled softly in the driveway, bringing over a warm casserole dish. I took a deep breath, smelling the sweet aroma of roasted vegetables, and fresh autumn rain through the open window. I was no longer waiting for someone else to save me or validate my worth. I had built a solid, safe, and independent world for my son with my own two hands. 1 year after Leo's birth, the autumn air at Naperville Riverwalk was crisp, cool, and refreshing. Golden sunlight filtered through the thick canopy of maple trees, painting the winding brick pavement in brilliant shades of amber, burnt orange, and deep crimson. The sweet, earthy scent of fallen leaves and roasted chestnuts drifted softly through the park on a gentle breeze. We gathered around a long wooden picnic table near the riverbank to celebrate Leo's first birthday. The party was simple, intimate, and warm. Bright yellow balloons shaped like storybook animals bobbed gently against the wooden posts. A plain sheet cake with white vanilla frosting sat on a paper tablecloth alongside juice boxes for the toddlers and metal thermoses of hot coffee for the adults. The guests were the very people who had quietly carried us through our hardest, darkest season. My mother, Martha, sat comfortably on a wooden bench, laughing warmly with my coworkers from the Target warehouse. Nurse Denise from Edward Hospital stopped by after finishing a long night shift, sipping hot coffee in her soft teal scrub uniform. Across the grass, Evelyn sat in a sturdy folding lawn chair, wearing her favorite floral cardigan sweater, watching Leo chase floating soap bubbles across the green lawn. At 3 o'clock sharp, Jason arrived. He walked down the paved path wearing a plain gray crewneck sweater and dark jeans. He looked noticeably older than he had a year ago, with soft silver threads highlighting his hair, but his posture was humble, relaxed, and calm. He carried a small brown paper bag containing a simple, handmade wooden shape sorter. No flashy cameras, no expensive designer labels, no artificial audience to impress. Leo squealed with joy the moment he spotted Jason. My son toddled over on his chubby legs, his arms outstretched without a single second of hesitation. Jason knelt down on the damp grass, holding Leo gently close to his chest, taking great care to support his head and back. I watched them quietly from the picnic table as Jason patiently guided Leo's tiny fingers, helping him fit the square wooden block into the matching opening. There were no selfies, no Facebook posts, no staged smiles for a phone lens. Just a father completely present in the moment with his young son. When the guests began packing up the decorations and food trays, Jason stepped toward me near the edge of the quiet riverbank. The clear water flowed gently past, sparkling like crushed diamonds under the late afternoon light. "Could we talk for just a minute, Hannah?" he asked softly, his voice low and hesitant. I nodded calmly, stepping a few paces away from the busy table to give us privacy. Jason looked down at his leather shoes, then raised his eyes to look straight into mine. "I have rehearsed what I wanted to say 1,000 times in my head," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "I still don't know if there are words big enough to fix what I broke. I am so deeply sorry, Hannah." I remained silent, letting his words rest in the crisp autumn air between us. I wasn't just tired that night. Jason swallowed hard, a single tear slipping down his cheek. I was arrogant, selfish, and foolish. I convinced myself my career mattered more than anything else in the world. I kept assuming there would always be another chance to fix things later. He paused, turning his eyes toward Leo, who was happily playing with Evelyn's cardigan buttons. "I missed the most important day of my son's life, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." I looked at Jason for a long, quiet moment. The sharp anger and resentment that used to burn inside my chest were completely gone, replaced by a deep, unshakable stillness. "I don't spend my days hating you anymore, Jason," I said, my voice steady, warm, and clear as glass. "But the woman who begged you to wake up that night, she doesn't exist anymore." Jason nodded slowly, wiping his damp cheek with the back of his hand. "I know. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. They can't. No, they can't, I agreed softly, because I finally learned that love isn't measured by polished promises or social media photos. Love is measured by presence. It is measured by the ordinary people who show up when the room goes dark. Jason looked toward the wooden table, where 3 generations of people, connected not by marriage certificates, but by genuine, reliable care, were laughing together under the golden trees. "Thank you for letting me be a part of his life," he whispered. "He needs his father," I said gently. "Just be here for him." As the afternoon sun sank lower, casting a rich, golden glow across the water, Jason said his goodbyes and walked back up the paved path. I stood by the riverbank for a long moment, feeling the cool autumn breeze on my face. A year ago, I was lying broken on a cold floor in the dark, believing my life was completely over. Today, I stood on my own 2 feet, healthy, prosperous, free, and deeply loved. I turned back toward the table where my mother, Evelyn, and my son were waiting for me. I smiled, breathing in the fresh, clean air, completely at peace. The sunset lit up the sky in radiant shades of gold and rose, and I walked forward into my bright, beautiful future, proud, free, and unshakable. All shadows must fade before the truth, and every pain is simply the start of a beautiful rebirth. Always remember, the right to write a new chapter of your life is forever in your hands. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below so we know we're walking this journey together. Hope to see you on the next page.